I think I'm going to start near the top of the page just because I love this prayer. This is rules for householders and monks. And the master asks Mahima, please recite that verse, the one about devotion to Hari. Mahimacharan recited, quoting from the Narada Pancharatra, what need is there of penance if God is worshipped with love? What is the use of penance if God is not worshipped with love? What need is there of penance if God is seen within and without? What is the use of penance if God is not seen within and without? We're on page 410, Sarah. Master, recite that part also. Obtain from him the love of God. Mahima recited, O Brahman, O my child, cease from practicing further penances. Hasten to Shankara, the ocean of heavenly wisdom. Obtain from him the love of God, the pure love praised by devotees, which snaps in twain the shackles that bind you to the world. Master, yes, Shankara will bestow the love of God. Mahima, one who is free from bondage, is the eternal Shiva. Master, shame, hatred, fear, hesitation, these are the shackles. What do you say? Mahima, yes, sir, and also the desire to conceal and shrinking from praise. Master, there are two signs of knowledge. First, an unshakable buddhi. No matter how many sorrows, afflictions, dangers, and obstacles one may be faced with, one's mind does not undergo any change. It is like the blacksmith's anvil, which receives constant blows from the hammer and still remains unshaken. And second, manliness, very strong grit. If lust and anger injure a man, he must renounce them once and for all. If a tortoise once tucks in its limbs, it won't put them out again, though you may cut it into pieces. To Thakur Dada and the others, there are two kinds of renunciation. Intense and feeble. Feeble renunciation is a slow process. One moves in a slow rhythm. Intense renunciation is like the sharp edge of a razor. It cuts the bondage of Maya easily and at once. One farmer labors for days to bring water from the lake to his field, but his efforts are futile because he has no grit. Another farmer, after laboring for 2 or 3 days, takes a vow and says, I will bring water to my field today, and not till then will I go home. He puts aside all thought of his bath or his meal. He labors the whole day and feels great joy when in the evening he finds water entering his field with a murmuring sound. Then he goes home to his wife and says, Now give me some oil. I shall take my bath. After finishing his bath and his meal, he lies down to sleep with a peaceful mind. A certain woman said to her husband, So-and-so has developed a spirit of great dispassion for the world, but I don't see anything of the sort in you. He has 16 wives. He is giving them up one by one. The husband, with a towel over his shoulder, was going to the lake for his bath. He said to his wife, You're crazy. He won't be able to give up the world. Is it ever possible to renounce bit by bit? I can renounce. Look, here I go. He didn't stop even to settle his household affairs. He left home just as he was, the towel on his shoulder, and went away. This is intense renunciation. There's another kind of renunciation called Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation. A man harrowed by distress at home puts on an ochre robe and goes away to Benares. For many days he does not send home any news of himself. Then he writes to his people, "Don't be worried about me. I've got a job here." There's always trouble in family life. The wife may be disobedient. Perhaps the husband earns only 20 rupees a month. He hasn't means to perform the rice-eating ceremony for his baby. He can't educate his son. The house is dilapidated. The roof leaks, and he hasn't the money to repair it. Therefore, when the youngsters come here, ask them whether they have anyone at home. To Mahima, why should householders renounce the world? What great troubles the wandering monks pass through. The wife of a certain man said to him, "You want to renounce the world? Why? You will have to beg morsels from 8 different homes, and here you get all your food at one place. Isn't that nice?" Wandering monks, while searching for a sadavrata, which is an eating place which supplies food to monks and beggars, may have to go 6 miles out of their way. I have seen them traveling along the regular road after their pilgrimage to Puri and making a detour to find an eating place. You are leading a householder's life. That's very good. It is like fighting from a fort. There are many disadvantages in fighting in an open field. So many dangers, too. Bullets may hit you. But one should spend some time in solitude and attain knowledge. Then one can lead the life of a householder. Janaka lived in the world after attaining knowledge. When you have gained it, you may live anywhere. Then nothing matters. Mahima, sir, why does one become deluded by worldly objects? Master, it is because he lives in their midst without having realized God. Man never succumbs to delusion after he has realized God. The moth no longer enjoys darkness if it has once seen the light. To be able to realize God, one must practice absolute continence. Sages like Shukadev are examples of Uttareta, man of unbroken and complete continence. Their chastity is absolutely unbroken. There is another class who previously have had discharges of semen, but who later on have controlled them. A man controlling the seminal fluid for 12 years develops a special power. He grows an inner nerve called the nerve of memory. Through that nerve, he remembers all, and he understands all. Loss of semen impairs the strength, but it does not injure one if one loses it in a dream. The semen one gets from food. What remains after nocturnal discharge is enough, but one must not know a woman. The semen that remains after nocturnal discharge is very refined. The Lahas kept jars of molasses in their house. Every jar had a hole in it. After a year, they found that the molasses had crystallized like sugar candy. The unnecessary watery part had leaked out through the hole. A sannyasi must absolutely renounce woman. You are already involved, but that doesn't matter. A sannyasi must not look even if she is a devotee of God. Living as a sannyasi is like observing the Ekadashi without drinking even a drop of water. There are 2 ways of observing the day. You may eat fruit or take luchi and curry. With the luchi and curry, you may also take slices of bread soaked in milk. All laugh. Smiling, absolute fasting is not possible for you. Once I saw Krishna Kishore eating luchi and curry on an Ekadashi day. I said to Hridoy, "Hridu, I want to observe Krishna Kishore's Ekadashi. All laugh. And so I did one day. I ate my fill. The next day I had to fast. Laughter. The devotees who had gone to the Panchavati to visit the Hatha Yogi came back. Master addressing them. Well, what do you think of him? I dare say you have measured him with your own tape. Sri Ramakrishna saw that very few of the devotees were willing to give money to the Hatha Yogi. Master, you don't like a sadhu if you have to give him money. Rajendra Mitra draws a salary of 800 rupees a month. He had been to Allahabad to see the Kumbh Mela. I asked him, well, what kind of sadhus did you see at the fair? Rajendra said, I didn't find any great sadhu there. I noticed one, it is true, but even he accepted money. I say to myself, if no one gives money to a sadhu, then how will he feed himself? There is no collection plate here, therefore all come. And I say to myself, alas, they love their money, let them have it. The master rested a while, sat on the end of the small couch, and a devotee sat on the end of the small couch and gently stroked his feet. The master said to him softly, that which is formless, again, has form. One should believe in the forms of God also. By meditating on Kali, the aspirant realizes God as Kali. Next, he finds that the form merges into the indivisible absolute. That which is the indivisible Satchidananda is verily Kali. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the semicircular porch west of his room talking with Mahima and other devotees about the Hatha Yogi. The talk drifted to Ram Prasanna, the son of Krishna Kishore. The master was fond of the young man. Master, Ram Prasanna roams about aimlessly. The other day he came here and sat in the room, but he did not speak a word. He pressed his nostrils with his fingers, practicing pranayama. I offered him something to eat, but he wouldn't take it. On another occasion, I had asked him to sit by me. He squatted on the floor, placing one leg upon the other. He was rather discourteous to Captain. I weep at his mother's suffering. To Mahima, Ram Prasanna asked me to speak to you about the Hatha Yogi. The yogi's daily expenses are 6.5 annas, but he won't tell you about it himself. Mahima, who will listen to him even if he does? Mani Sen of Panihati entered the room with several friends, one of whom was a physician. Mani asked the master about his injured arm. The doctor did not approve of the medicine prescribed by Pratap Mazumdar. The master said to him, why should you say that? Pratap is no fool. Suddenly Latu cried out, oh, the medicine bottle has dropped and broken. It was not yet dusk. The master, seated on the couch, was talking to M. Mahima Charan was on the semicircular porch, engaged in a loud discussion of the scriptures with the physician friend of Mani Sen. Sri Ramakrishna heard it, and with a smile said to M, there, he is delivering himself. That is the characteristic of Rajas. It stimulates the desire to lecture and to show off one's scholarship. But sattva makes one introspective. It makes one hide one's virtues. But I must say that Mahima is a grand person. He takes such delight in spiritual talk. Adhar entered the room, saluted the master, and sat by M's side. He had not come for the past few days. Master, hello. Why haven't you come all these days? Adhar, sir, I've been busy with so many things. I had to attend a conference of the school committee and various other meetings. Master, so you completely lost yourself in schools and meetings and forgot everything else. Adhar: everything else was hidden away in a corner of my mind. How is your arm? Master: just look, it is not yet healed. I've been taking medicine prescribed by Pratap. After a time, the Master suddenly said to Adhar: look here. All these are unreal. Meeting, school, office, and everything else. God alone is the substance, and all else is illusory. One should worship God with one's whole mind. Adhar sat without speaking a word. Master, Master, allergy time. Master, all else is illusory. This moment the body is, and the next moment it is not. One must make haste to worship God. But you don't have to renounce everything. Live in the world the way the tortoise does. Now, there was a footnote when he says one must make haste to worship God. Adhar died a few months after this conversation. One must live in the world as the tortoise does. The tortoise roams about in the water, but keeps his eggs on land. His whole mind is on the eggs. What a nice state of mind Captain has developed. He looks like a rishi when he is seated to perform worship. He performs the arati with lighted camphor and recites beautiful hymns. When he rises from his seat after finishing the worship, his eyes are swollen from emotion as if bitten by ants. Besides, he always devotes himself to the study of the sacred books such as the Gita and the Bhagavata. Once I used one or two English words before him, and that made him angry. English-educated people are profane, he said. After a while, Adhar said humbly to the Master, Sir, you haven't been to our place in a long time. The drawing room smells worldly, and everything else appears to be steeped in darkness. The Master was deeply touched by these words of his devotee. He suddenly stood up and blessed M and Adhar in an ecstatic mood, touching their heads and hearts. In a voice choked with love, the Master said, I look upon you as Narayana himself. You are indeed my own. Mahima Charan entered the room. Master to Mahima, what I said about aspirants practicing continence is true. Without chastity, one cannot assimilate these teachings. Once a man said to Chaitanya, you give the devotees so much instruction. Why don't they make any progress? Chaitanya said, they dissipate their powers in the company of women. That is why they cannot assimilate spiritual instruction. If one keeps water in a leaky jar, the water escapes little by little through the leak. Mahima and the other devotees remained silent. After a while, Mahima said, please pray to God for us, that we may acquire the necessary strength. Master, be on your guard even now. It is difficult, no doubt, to check the torrent in the rainy season, but a great deal of water has gone out. If you build the embankment now, it will stand. Are there any questions or comments about what we've just read? John?
A little curious. Holy Mother is so important in everything, yet this prohibition about having any contact with women seems to be contradictory. Can you comment on that?
Well, contact with women in that instance is as long as you see the difference between men and women. When you've reached the state of Ramakrishna, you don't see that difference, you see the Atman. So you're not even thinking of the outside form.
Okay.
I mean, that's in trying to see the God within, that's what we're all trying to achieve. where we don't see the difference. We see our oneness with everyone. Okay. Any other questions or comments? That was a good one. Okay, we're on chapter 21 on page 415, A Day at Dakshineshwar. Saturday, April 5th, 1884. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning when M arrived at the temple garden and found Sri Ramakrishna seated on the small couch in his room. A few devotees were sitting on the floor. The master was talking to them. Pran Krishna Mukherjee was there. Pran Krishna belonged to an aristocratic family and lived in the northern part of Calcutta. He held a high post in an English business firm. He was very much devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, and though a householder, derived great pleasure from the study of Vedanta philosophy. He was a frequent visitor at the temple garden. Once he invited the master to his house in Calcutta and held a religious festival. Every day, early in the morning, he bathed in the holy water of the Ganga. Whenever it was convenient, he would come to Dakshineshwar in a hired boat. That morning, he had hired a boat and invited M to accompany him to Dakshineshwar. The boat had hardly left the shore when the river became choppy. M had become frightened and begged Pran Krishna to put him back on land. In spite of assurances, M kept saying, "You must put me ashore. I shall walk to Dakshineshwar." And so M came on foot and found Sri Ramakrishna talking to Pran Krishna and the others. Master to Pran Krishna. But there is a greater manifestation of God in man. You may ask, how is it possible for God to be incarnated as a man who suffers from hunger, thirst, and the other traits of an embodied being, and perhaps also from disease and grief? The reply is, even Brahman weeps, entrapped in the snare of the 5 elements. Don't you know how Rama had to weep, stricken with grief for Sita? Further, it is said that the Lord incarnated himself as a sow in order to kill the demon Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha was eventually killed, but God would not go back to his abode in heaven. He enjoyed his sow's life. He had given birth to several young ones and was rather happy with them. The gods said to themselves, "What does this mean? The Lord doesn't care to return to heaven." They all went to Shiva and laid the matter before him. Shiva came down and urged the Lord to leave the sow body and return to heaven. But the sow only suckled her young ones. Laughter. Then Shiva destroyed the sow body with a trident, and the Lord came out laughing aloud and went back to his abode. Pran Krishna to the master, "Sir, what is the anahata sound?" Master, it is a spontaneous sound, constantly going on by itself. It is the sound of the pranava, Om. It originates in the Supreme Brahman and is heard by yogis. People immersed in worldliness do not hear it. A yogi alone knows that this sound originates both from his navel and from the Supreme Brahman resting on the ocean of milk. Pran Krishna, "Sir, what is the nature of the life after death?" Master, Keshav Sen also asked that question. As long as a man remains ignorant, that is to say, as long as he has not realized God, so long will he be born. But after attaining knowledge, he will not have to come back to this earth or to any other planes of existence. The potter puts his pots in the sun to dry. Haven't you noticed that among them there are both baked and unbaked ones? When a cow happens to walk over them, some of the pots get broken to pieces. The broken pots that are already baked, the potter throws away since they are of no more use to him. But the soft ones, though broken, he gathers up. He makes them into a lump, and out of this forms new pots. In the same way, so long as a man has not realized God, he will have to come back to the potter's hand. That is, he will have to be born again and again. What is the use of sowing a boiled paddy grain? It will never bring forth a shoot. Likewise, if a man is boiled in the fire of knowledge, he will not be used for new creation. He is liberated. According to the Puranas, the Bhakta and the Bhagavan are two separate entities. I am one, and you are another. The body is a plate, as it were, containing the water of mind, intelligence, and ego. Brahman is like the sun. It is reflected in the water. Therefore, the devotee sees the divine form. According to the Vedanta, Brahman alone is real, and all else is Maya, dreamlike or unsubstantial. The ego, like a stick, lies across the ocean of Satchidananda. To him, listen to what I'm saying. When this ego is taken away, there remains only one undivided ocean of Satchidananda. But as long as the stick of ego remains, there is an appearance of two. Here is one part of the water, and there another part. Attaining the knowledge of Brahman, one is established in samadhi. The ego is effaced. Okay, and we're going to stop there. And we'll talk about, next week we'll talk about Shankara's idea of the ego of knowledge. So, any other comments or questions about the last little bit we read? Okay, tomorrow's lecture is by Swami Sumanasananda, our assistant minister, and it is Bestow the Final Emancipation. And I don't have I don't have the November schedule, but we will have Vedarup? Okay. The following Sunday will be Swami Vedarupananda. We will have our reading on Wednesday, Swami Akandananda. And there will be a gospel reading the next week too. Okay. Any other? If there is no comment, then we will end with a semi-chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Panamastu. Good to see all of you. I like to see your faces. It's nice to see them. Have a good weekend. Stay healthy.